Good afternoon, David Chua, to the National Critics' Choice. And we heard that you're going to be releasing your new book, I think the first, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's right, my first book of poetry.
And yes, a lot of people are wondering, what made you a poet in today's society. I mean, it's hard to find people to write poetry these days. It's a very rare talent. And what does it mean to be a poet, really? So to give us some insights.
Okay. Well, let's take what does it mean to be a poet. In a sense, I don't really call myself a poet because I do so many things, and being a poet is just one part of me. But I've been writing poetry for a long time, and my poetry have been published at different places, and I thought it's high time that I put them all together in a collection that makes sense. So that I can actually move on to doing other things. And that's what's motivated me to put together my first book of poetry. As a poet, so to speak, I think for me it's very, very important to capture thoughts, ideas, emotions, feelings into words. And that's my instinct to do that. And as a result, I think I'm able to create poetry, and how that might come across is not for me to judge. It's for my readers to judge. But I truly enjoy doing that. In other words, putting words down on paper to express, as I mentioned, ideas, feelings, emotions, and all that.
And so, in your latest, first new book, tell us how do you arrive to this new title? What actually inspired you? Was there an experience that you can share with us that caught you?
I think that's a really good question. I think for my first book, I wanted to be quite broad in that sense. I didn't want to be so narrow in my focus. So the title of the poetry collection is called Traveler's Tales and Other Poems. And Traveler's Tale is very broad in that sense. It's my journey, physical, emotional, as well as spiritual, I guess, And so, I grew up in Singapore, but I've lived away for a long time. I lived in England, I lived in Hong Kong, I lived in, now I live in New York. So it expresses my journey through all these countries, through the various years, my formative years, my career, everything. And so that is hopefully, an introduction to what I do as a poet.
And so, in your years of experience, and you began writing poetry, was there one event that actually caused you to feel that being a poet, after all, a most worthy cause?
Worthy cause.
Yes, a worthy cause, or probably something that you feel that is the right thing to do. Was there a experience?
Gosh, that's another good question. I think, because I've been. Is the noise interfering? Okay. Let me start again. I think it's okay, right?
It's okay.
Yeah. So as a, gosh, that's very distracting.